Good morning and welcome to Lattes and Leaders with Dr. Brad Johnson, best-selling author and accomplished public speaker specializing in education and educational leadership. I am your co-host, Jeremy Johnson, organizational psychology consultant specializing in career coaching, training, and development. Meet us here each week to discuss topics in education and leadership and meet with some of the top education talent and thought partners from across the globe. So grab your latte, sit back, and enjoy a relaxed conversation that will leave you informed and encouraged. Good morning and welcome to Lattes and Leaders with Dr. Brad Johnson. This morning we have a very special guest with us. We have Mr. Kemuel de Castro. How are you doing this morning?
I am very well. Thank you very much for sharing this space with me.
Hey, yeah, good morning. I'm so glad you were able to make it. I know it's probably a busy time of the year as school's getting ready to start back, but man, I'm so glad you were able to come today and be able to share your story with us. So, welcome.
Thank you.
All right. Well, yeah, let's dive right in. Can you tell us just a little bit about your journey so far, how you've come to be doing what you're doing right now?
This is my 20th year in education, and my passion in education has sprung with my parents. Despite of my parents' inability to finish formal school, they persevered, sacrificed, and burnt the midnight oil so that my siblings and I can enjoy the benefit of education.
Wow.
I remember my parent when I was growing up. My parents would say, "The only treasure that we can give you is the gift of education." And
Mm.
so that is the reason why I am here on this journey. And from the Philippines, I said the books that I'm reading is about constructivism during that time, and it was authored by American authors. And I was like, I want to go there and learn. And so that made me took the journey to come to the United States. And from there, I just kept on learning. And now I'm part of the principal academy in the fourth largest district in the United States, Houston ISD.
Yeah, that is one huge place. We've been there several times. I love that city. So, that is a cool journey. At what age did you come here?
So that was back in 2010. I was 25 years of age, and I was teaching in the Philippines. I had because in the Philippines it's different. We didn't have K to 12 back then, so I graduated high school at the age of 16, and then graduated college at the age of 20. And so I took an experience of teaching for 4.5 years in the Philippines, and then I applied to be here in the United States. And the best part of my journey, I would say now, but back then it was really somehow excruciating because of the homesickness and all that. When I
Mm.
arrived, I was like, is this America? Because back in the Philippines, we have transportation everywhere. And then when I started in Corsicana, Texas, it was a farm. And I was like, is this America?
That's funny, but I think it's true when we think of other countries, we tend to think of like the large city there, where whatever country it is, and so we always equate it with like, and so I think yeah, people think like everywhere in the U.S. should be like New York or Los Angeles or something. So that's I love that you shared that.
So I'm really curious to hear about some of your education background. I see that you have a master's degree in physics. Can you tell us maybe a little bit about how coming from a that type of program in the STEM fields, how maybe that's informed your teaching or your leadership style even?
That's a very good question. As an emerging leader, adaptability is something that I value and I think I have because when I was hired back in 2010 to teach in Corsicana, Texas, I thought I would be teaching biology. And then 1 week before the start, they said, "Oh no, you're teaching physics." And so I had to adapt and all that.
Mm.
And then um, as my journey continues, I was asked to teach advanced placement physics. And so I would like to learn. And so I took that master's in physics with the hope that I will be able to teach dual credit physics. And to answer your question about how it has changed my view in leadership and how to approach things, one of the physics lessons that I really love is the dual nature of light. It's a particle and it's also a wave. And
Mm.
sometimes when I approach things, I have to remind myself that two things can exist at the same time. I
Mhm.
can, I can love something, but I can also hate it at the same time. So, and hate and love are not opposites, right? And so sometimes I love teaching, but sometimes there are times that I'm so frustrated about it because of the systems in place and all that. So, coming
Mhm.
from the physics background, I bring that aspect in the way I make decisions. That sometimes it's not black and white. Sometimes you have to go in the gray area. Another aspect is that data-driven decision making. Sometimes you have to know the current realities and the different things before you can actually make decisions. Same thing in physics, you have to understand the given, the unknown, the equation, the solution, the answer sentence. So I use that model when I attack problems. And so, same thing in leadership, you have to understand the current reality and what constraints do you have in order to make an informed decision.
I love that. And first of all, I want to say thank you for breaking that down where I could understand it. Because when Jerry's talking about asking you about that physics, I'm like, Lord, I won't even know what he's talking about. But so thank you for that. And that just shows the teacher in you too to be able to explain it. But I love your point that everything isn't black and white. You can love something and hate it sometimes too. And, it's both are real and both are viable. So, I think as leaders, that's important to remember. And maybe if they don't know that, to recognize that. And so that you have that adaptability that you're talking about. I think ever since, especially, everybody hates to talk about COVID, but since then, I think adaptability has been something that's,
Mhm.
really needed at the forefront of education in every field or in leadership in every field.
That is right. We have to continually reinvent ourselves because that's just leadership. You have to continually change yourself and evolve. Otherwise, you cannot pivot.
Mhm. Absolutely.
Yeah, good point. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, I especially like what you said about your illustration of light being a particle and a wave at the same time, and that really makes me think about just looking at the world through that lens. It makes it easier to rethink, things at a, very deep level, and, even, the way that we go about things in education. Being able to rethink and, look at something again from a new set of eyes almost. So that's really cool, and I love that mindset. Let's talk a little bit about let's shift gears and talk a little bit about building relationships, both inside the school and those partnerships outside the school. Can you speak for a moment on the importance of that?
You know, I love how Dr. Brad Johnson alluded this one in his book, Relationship Before Rigor. And it really resonated with me. Love Before Lessons, at the very first line, relationship before rigor. And a lot of authors talk about it as well. For example, Seven Habits of Highly Effective People. We need to
Mhm.
build that emotional bank account with other people before we can actually work with them. So the way I do it, or the way I did it when I was an assistant principal or director, I just create conversation. At the end of the
Mm.
day,
Mhm.
when we listen to the people that we serve, when we create that safe space, And when we say safe space, it's okay to make mistakes. That
Yeah.
psychological safety is there, that, hey, we're just having a conversation. And as a leader, I am here to support you. So that is one thing that I love about being a leader, because now I can create, I have the ability, I have the luxury to create that space for my for the people that I'm leading. Now, with respect to my students, one of the things that I'm really very proud of, and I always brag about it, is I developed this positive behavior incentive system or intervention system, and I call it Catch Me at My Best. And
Mm.
so the idea
Mm.
is, you have this card, which is you're doing your best. And best is relative. For
Right.
example, Dr. Brad Johnson show up to class on time, and that's his first time. So that means he's showing his best. Or Jose is answering the question today, and he's showing his best. And so the idea is, students collect this Catch Me at My Best cards, and then they then use that to buy something from the Catch Me at My Best store. And so
Oh, yeah.
I love that idea, because it allows students to think about their behavior. And also I included the aspect of compounding interest. And let me explain why. Because in the store, you have, for one card, this is what you can avail. For 30 cards, this is what you can avail. So that attitude of, I'm going to wait and let my interest compound so that I can go to NASA. Because one of the prizes that I created, I partnered with the community. We went to NASA. If you collected 30 Catch Me at My Best cards, or we went to a
Wow.
local arcade, if you collected 30 cards. And so I love how students are partaking in the development of their well-being by showing what they're capable of.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
also, this is not just teachers giving cards to the students, it's
Right.
everybody. If you're a custodian, give a Catch Me at My Best
Okay.
card to the kid. And so that's how I
Yeah.
built, or that's how I built relationship with teachers, students, and staff.
I
Yeah, that's
love that.
awesome. Yeah.
Yeah. And especially like to win the trips or whatever, especially when you said NASA. I don't know if you saw I perked up because when I was in school, especially in seventh grade, I got to do my science fair project on the space shuttle. So I love everything about space. I love NASA. I wished I could go to space. I love everything about that. So if I would have been in your class, that would have been the thing I would have been working towards.
That's awesome, because the reason why I did that is, eventually the goal is to tie it to student achievement. Because
Hmm.
if you're doing good, what I would like you to have is the equity of opportunity.
Hmm.
Because eventually, if you're creating all these cards, or if you're using all these cards, I want to go to visit universities or other museums. That's the main prize, and that's the goal. And so it always ties back to student achievement and providing opportunities for our students.
And that's a great way to build habits too, I mean, it's almost like building habits of excellence to an extent. So I really like that.
Thank you.
So, what are some of the qualities you see as being most important for those in educational leadership?
That is a very good question. And in the season that I am in right now, what I would say is that the best quality of a leader to have is, this may shock a lot of people. It may sound cliche, but be a decent human being.
Oh, I like that.
Because at the end of the day, you can hold people accountable, you can let go of people, but you don't have to do it in a cruel manner. You
Mm.
can hold
Mm.
people accountable without being cruel. You can have crucial conversations with people without being cruel. So I think the best trait of a leader is being attached to what is a decent human being look like.
Oh,
Yeah.
I love that. Yeah, because yeah, that whole mindset, that's really good. Because at the end of the day, I was just thinking that while you were sharing that is you're leading people. And so people want to be treated with respect and value, even if, like you said, there's a conflict we're resolving or there's an issue. There's still a way you can do it, and them keep their integrity and things like that. Or that's not the word I'm looking for, but that they don't feel devalued in the process. So that's powerful. I think that's very powerful.
Absolutely. And that's what I remind myself every single day. Am I being fair? Am I being a decent human being? Because, it's not just me who I want to be proud, but my parents as well. I
Mm,
always think
I
about,
love that.
are my parents proud because of the decisions I am making today? Are my parents proud because of how I treat my colleagues, my people above and below me in terms of statue? And remember, my parents never finished formal education, and so I somehow advocate for them by treating everybody with the same respect and with the same expected behavior. So just
Mm.
be a decent human being.
Yeah.
I
Mm.
love that. I love that when you talk about your parents too, because you know you're living, or they're living their legacy through you. And so the importance of that legacy being a good one, and how you act and how you interact and things like that. So yeah, that kind of gives me goosebumps thinking about, because I guess we all do that. I still think about, like you said, when I'm doing things or in the leadership role, I am reflecting back to my mom and my dad and what they taught and their expectations, and that does influence it. So that you really are reflecting them in it, so you want to make sure you honor them that way too. So that's a great perspective, I think, to hold on to.
Absolutely. And when we do things that are not, you know, um, parallel to the teachings of our parents, we disappoint them. And so I don't want to be that person.
I love it. Yeah.
So I really like what you said about having those tough conversations without being cruel. And that's a big thing, especially for leaders. In one of our books, Dr. Johnson and I talk about leveraging compassion to, do those tough things. It's not just about the correction. It's about the whole school. It's about, the betterment of everybody. It's about, the betterment of, the education that people can give and the school culture. And so I just really like that. And it's, just very in line with, with what we've talked about and what we continue to talk about. So, can you tell us about maybe one or two teachers that have had the biggest impact on your development as a leader?
Wow. I love this question. Our influence as teachers, we don't know. It affects until eternity. We don't know. I think it was Henry Adams who said that the influence of a teacher, we don't know when it stops. And
Mm,
so, with that question, I have two teachers in mind. My first one would be my fourth grade teacher, Mrs. Ventura. And I still remember her because she just believed in me. Like she saw my
mm,
potential. And I think it's very important in whatever role you are in is to have someone who believes in you,
Yeah.
whether
Yes.
that's leadership, being a teacher, having someone who is rooting for you no matter what
mhm,
is something that is really valuable. And the second person was my sixth grade teacher. And I know that she meant well, but here's what happened. And I can vividly remember she said it was an advisory class back in the Philippines. She said, if you want to be a leader, please stand up. So of course I stood up, right? I want to be a leader. And then she looked at me and said, "No, you cannot be a leader. Sit down." And so that was crazy, right? But I know at this point, reflecting back, I know that she meant well. Maybe during that time I was not ready, but what resonated in my brain as I reflected on that particular instance is that I'm going to prove not to her, but to myself that I can be a leader and that a leader can be developed. And so, in my
Mm.
journey as a student, when I got to college, I was able to become the president of the student council. And so, and
Mm.
people voted for it. And the whole team, me being the president, the whole entire ticket won. And so that is something that I'm really proud of my teachers, because first, someone who believed in me, and then second, someone who challenged me. And again, I'm not faulting that teacher for seeing me that way. Maybe it was a recipe for me to think and realize that, hey, I need to change something, or I need to pursue better things so that I can be called a leader someday.
That was the first thing that popped in my mind when you mentioned the sixth grade teachers. Maybe she cared enough about you to be honest with you, because if she would have let you just stand up, you may not have ever thought through or changed or, realized what it took to be a leader. Because I think sometimes people misunderstand, especially when I talk about relationships. It's not always just warm, fuzzy, trying to be best friends. It's about caring about that person enough to be honest with them, to respect them. And, so in a way, that's how she was with you. She was honest enough with you to say, no, that's not where you're at yet. She didn't say you never would be or didn't have the potential. So I think sometimes people miss that with relationship. And you don't have to be, like you said, mean or whatever, but telling the truth is part of good relationship. And but I love that you remember, too, from early childhood. I do too. I tell people I remember every teacher I had, good or bad. I remember every one, and they really do, influence our lives, because they're really the first people outside of our family that have influence on us. And so it's good to have those, like you said, that believe in you, that challenge you, and really want the best for you. I think that's, one of the keys to being an effective teacher and an effective leader too.
I totally agree, Dr. Brad, especially when people are trying to coach us. Sometimes we would take it as, what? I'm not ready? What? I don't deserve this? But sometimes they just want us to reflect and ponder. And when the right time comes, you can, soar and emerge victorious. And I resonate with you when you said we need people in our lives as a leader to have that candor, that I'm gonna tell you whether it hurts. I'm going to tell you.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, some people don't like that, but it really is. If you really want to grow and be your best, it's important, to have those people in your life. And, I often say, even as leaders, it's important to listen to your staff and get feedback from them. It doesn't mean you'll agree with everything they say, but it's important to hear their perspective, because it 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 may resonate with you, or it may, let you see something maybe that you didn't see before, or something to be made aware of that, really helps you become better too.
Yes, and it's a blessing to have someone like that in my career, in our leadership journey.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
So you mentioned previously it was the Catch Me at My Best initiative. Did I get that right?
Yes, sir.
So can you tell us about some other initiatives that you've been a part of that you think have been just, particularly effective in schools?
You know what I've noticed? That's a very good question. What I've noticed about our school system is that we are so stingy with the partnership that we create with parents and celebrating our
Mm.
students. And so this is not my original. I just saw this on Twitter, posted from, I think it's a principal project, something like that. And it was really very good. And so I did it in my own school. It's called 100 Positive Phone Calls. And
Mm,
so as an administrator, I challenge my staff because oftentimes, and that's us human beings, we have the negativity instinct that we only
Mm.
focus on the negative. So now the challenge is look for something that's positive about that student and be creative as well, especially if this is the student that's giving you hard time in your teaching, and pick up the phone, call the parents, and celebrate that kid, and watch and see the magic.
yes.
The
Wow.
magic happened to me because after that they actually receive a form, and then they will put it on the wall where everybody can see it. So they will put the name of the kid, and then the reason why they call, and then the name of the teacher. The magic happened to me, and it was very inspiring because when I was looking at it, a student came to me and said, I want to be part of that. How can I be
Oh,
part of that? How can I be
love
on
that.
that wall? And so I explain it to that particular student. And so our student don't come to school saying, I'm going to be bad today. No.
Mm.
Our kids want to come to school and do their best. They don't come to school and say, I'm going to be bad today. Just like our teachers, they don't come to
Mhm.
work and say, I'm going to be a horrible teacher today. And so it's just a matter of creating that space, creating that environment, fostering that positive environment where our students can thrive and our teachers can thrive.
I love
Right.
that. Yeah, it's so true. And, we do even, because that's my thought too. Nobody comes, to school or their job or anything and with the mindset, I want to be really bad today. I want to, bring my worst. So, and I think
Mm.
students are the same way. I love that.
Mm. So I am really impressed by your focus on positivity. I mean, it's huge and it's so important. We just, don't hear enough of that. So can you tell us a little bit about how you carry that mindset through to just your teachers?
Recently I was reflecting, why am I so positive? Why do I have this mindset? And then it allowed me to go back to my culture as a Filipino from the Philippines. And, I would say we are the most resilient people in the world
Mm,
because we get typhoons 20 times a year, I believe, 20 to
Mm.
30 times a year, and it's a year round. And you would see that even in the midst of a disaster, a Filipino will still be smiling. I'm not sure if
mm.
you have worked with a Filipino
Mm.
before, but they just always carry a smile. And we also love karaoke. Who sings not happy, right? So I think it's coming from the totality of my being, the way I was raised, and the way my culture has been from the very beginning. The resiliency will always be there, and so we're just hopeful. And so when I challenge that, or I transfer that to my teachers by, and this may sound silly, you just smile.
Mm.
Because sometimes administrators or leaders are so serious.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
Like, it's not that serious. I know that there are some urgent things, I know that, but 95% of the time, it's not that serious. So smile and channel that energy, channel that positivity. It's okay. And
Mm.
so
Yeah.
that's what I do.
Yeah, well, I remember I've even had teachers tell me, like that their principal won't, they walk down the hall and they just stare at the ground. They won't look up and they never smile or say hello or anything. And it does that's like just, ruins it. But I love the resilience part that you said because I think that's so key. I think that's so key to success in any level is having that resiliency that you're just, you're not going to give up. You're going to keep going as hard as it gets. You'll work through it. I just think that's a powerful mindset to have. And it's not something you really can teach, I don't think. Maybe you can, I don't know, but I think when we have that and we utilize that, yeah, that's just powerful. And to think about, like you said, you know in the Philippines, to have that many typhoons every year and things destroyed, and just to keep smiling is, I mean, it's, I don't even know how to describe it. It's a powerful thing, because it's not like that you're ignoring what's going on. It's just that that you have the resiliency to get back, to build back, and to keep going. And so that's a man, that's an unstoppable mindset, really.
Hmm.
Yes, sir. Thank you. With this conversation, it reminded me of my very first associate principal back in Corsicana, Texas, Corsicana High School. He was always so serious. He would never smile. And every time he comes to my classroom, I'm just terrified because I
Yeah.
was a brand new teacher and I always feel like I'm going to do something wrong because he just never smiled.
Mm.
And I know that he was trying to challenge me. And he did. He was successful in challenging me because, like what you said, I know as a Filipino, I am resilient. I'm going to rise above these occasions. And but at first he came off like so strong, and I was like, I'm always terrified. But at the end of that year, I got Teacher of the Year for some reason.
Oh, wow. Awesome. Oh,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah, that's great.
It's funny you mentioned how he come in your classroom and how you responded, because that probably influenced how you interacted with teachers and going into their classrooms too. We had somebody on and they made a good point that, you know, you can tell a lot about an administrator by how the teacher reacts to them coming into their classroom. And I'm like, that is so true. Like you said, do they scare you to death? Do they throw you off? Or do you, have that relationship with them where, I don't care if they're in here or not, come on in and watch. And, or the other, like you said, is he going to catch me doing something wrong? And that's a horrible, relationship to have, I think, with administrators.
Okay, so this is a tough one for a lot of those in educational leadership. But how do you take care of yourself? How do you do the self-care? Do you have any special hobbies, or how do you do it?
That is a very good question. When I was growing up, my parents always listened to Whitney Houston. That was
Mhm.
in the 90s, right? And so I love one of her songs, one of my favorites, and she said the lyric was, "The greatest love of all is learning how to love yourself." And
Mm.
so from
Mm,
the get go, that's one of my core values. So it's not a challenge for me per se, but the way I take care of myself is I go to the gym. I love playing basketball. Yes, I'm
mm.
5'3", I get it. Because my former students, they juniors and seniors, they are much taller than
Right.
me, and I still play basketball. Every week I play basketball, and then I go to the sauna and I do yoga.
Mhm.
And most importantly, I travel. I see to it that I travel twice a year because
Mhm.
I love how who said that? I think it was Mark Twain. Travel is fatal to prejudice,
Mhm. Yeah.
bigotry, and narrow mindedness. And
Oh,
so
yeah.
when I travel, it
Mm.
broadens my horizon and I bring back ideas from the countries or places that I visited. I bring it back to my school and then create an initiative and all that. I would like to share. Recently, I was in Mexico City and I noticed that they have a wellness day. How wonderful to have a wellness day in a school. Wednesday is a wellness day. These are the things that's going to happen. Also, I noticed that they have a park for seniors. So what a wonderful idea to have a specific place for our teachers or for some of our students in our school environment. And so the way I take care of myself, that's my priority, because I always believe that you cannot give what you don't have.
Right. Yeah.
If
Mhm.
you are empty, then nothing will come out. So I always take care of myself. That's my priority.
I love that. And I love the travel. That's something I always share too. That's my favorite thing. And that's one of the reasons trying to get people from different countries on, and even you being able to share your background with the Philippines. Like you said, when you go to another country and you experience it, it changes everything about, you know, like, because I guess we all have like preconceived thoughts of things, but when you're there and experiencing it, I've been fortunate. I've traveled, to several different countries. I remember traveling throughout Southeast Asia, in Malaysia and Thailand and Taiwan, and just fell in love with the people and their cultures. And just, it's something you can't learn in a book. It's something you can't learn in the classroom, but it's something, like you said, that changes your heart and changes your reality of people in life like nothing else can, to just spend that time with them and appreciate them and see, just how awesome different cultures are, and the people everywhere are just so kind and genuine, and just, that's how we should, all be able to see the world, I think, is through that lens. So that's powerful.
I've really enjoyed hearing your message so far. Are there any last nuggets of wisdom that you want to leave our listeners with?
You know, that is a very good question. So I was saying, when you become a leader, it's a privilege, it's an honor. And I was telling Dr. Johnson a while ago that when you are given the chance to climb, make sure you lift other people. Because,
Love that.
and I remember this quote, one of my favorites. When you are successful, always remember, sometimes, somewhere, someone gave you a lift that started it all. And you are
Mhm.
indebted for life to help five other people the way you
Mm.
were helped. And so
Wow.
now that I'm in this particular position, I'm so happy that I'm able to lift other people with me as I climb and just ameliorate their personal lives and their, you know, lives, period,
Mhm.
because their livelihood is part of it as well. And another thing that I would like to leave our listeners who are trying to be in a leadership role is, I want you to think about, and I was reflecting about this the other day, who am I outside of these roles? What am
Mm.
I outside of these roles? And I would like them to think that these leadership roles that you are trying to seek, whether it's superintendency, executive director, being a principal, it's not a justification of your existence. And I'm
Mm.
going to repeat that. Any role, leadership role, is not a justification of your existence. Live your life, be happy. What's meant for you will always find its way.
Oh, I love that.
Mm.
Wow. That's a good word to end with. Wow. Yeah, it was so good to have you. We do have one more quick question for you, though, because this is called Lattes and Leaders. So,
Absolutely.
what is your hot beverage of choice? Is it coffee, latte, cappuccino, hot tea, none of the above?
Coconut milk caramel latte.
Ah,
That sounds great.
that sounds really good right
Wow.
now. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh.
I love it. Yeah, I'm a latte. I'll drink coffee sometimes. I like, it's called a chai latte. That's my favorite. So yeah, it's always interesting to see what people like, and I think that's just a fun way to end it. But man, it was so good to have you on. I love your story. I love the background even more. Didn't know. I'm so glad you were able to share all that. It's funny how even as you go through life and into adulthood, the impact, and we talk about the influence of teachers, but sometimes we forget about the influence of our parents. And so, to have both our family and professionals or teachers or colleagues to impact our life, it really is, like you said, we don't make it alone. We have other people helping us and building us up to get to that level. And that's why it's just so important to have that sphere of people in your life that are there to help you do that. So yeah, thank you so much for sharing.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for creating this space for me and being able to share my story, my journey, and my voice.
This has been Lattes and Leaders with Dr. Brad Johnson. We hope that you leave today feeling informed and inspired. For more educational content, be sure to add this podcast to your list and follow Dr. Johnson on any and all social media platforms. For more information on Dr. Johnson, Jeremy Johnson, and special guest, check out drbradjohnson.com. That is DOCTOR, Brad